welcome back. This is Sherry with Heart and Soulful. I'm back in the studio today working on this journal made from a vintage book. This is in a playlist called MELAINE'S journal. I'm doing it for a friend of my sister, and I wanted to do another video today showing just a couple of things that I'm going to include texturally, bits and pieces I want to add to the journal. So I thought it might be a fun little tutorial if you haven't tried these yet. So in the last video, I just did a flip through of this journal made from a vintage book. I did not do the binding and all of that on camera, so I just kind of went through my thought process and how I put this together and what I chose and why and how I did the cover. So I've kept it pretty simple. I've gone ahead and finished up the couple of doily pockets that I was working on in the last video. And today I wanted to show you a couple of other techniques of things I wanted to include in this journal. So one of the things that I had done when I put the journal together was that I had made this sturdier paper from tracing paper. So I wanted to show you how I did that because I went ahead and made a few more sheets. And I ended up really liking it, and I think I'll use it for lots of things. I really like it because you can still see through it. It gives you that sort of fabric texture on the one side from the cheesecloth, and then you have the tracing paper on the other side. So it's just kind of a nice way to make your tracing paper a little sturdier. So for this, so if you've never used tracing paper, it's something that I like to do to make kind of clear envelopes and things like that. And this is what it looks like after you tea stained it. So it's really just, this is the brand that I use, Strathmore tracing paper. I pick it up at Walmart. It's really just transparent parchment paper. And so it's nice and flat when you buy it, and you can see through it. It's just a nice weight, but I like tea staining it. So it comes in these 9x12 sheets in a pad, and once you have tea stained it with whatever technique, either dipping it or spraying it and let it dry, even when you iron it out, it kind of still has this kind of bubbly, I'm not sure how to call it, but it has a texture to it that it didn't have before. And I like that. So I'm going to use a piece of this, and let me get all this other stuff out of the way. So for these pages, I'll put this aside because this is something else I want to show you. I'm just using a piece of pre tea stained, or you can do coffee, whatever you'd like, or even just leave it white, of the paper. And then I'm just using, this is regular kitchen cheesecloth. And I'll try to find a link for this too, but you can just find this in the grocery store a lot of times where the kitchen utensils and things are. So I'm gonna go ahead, it's folded in 4 pieces, folded. So I'm gonna, before I unfold it, so I can do several, I'm gonna go ahead and kind of roughly cut the length of my paper. And I'm just gonna leave it a little extra so that I can trim it afterwards. And then I'm gonna go ahead, just before I try to adhere this, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up so that it's a single layer, so you can see it's kind of folded twice. So I have like a good 4 pieces in that width. And once you kind of stretch it out, one of those folds pretty close to fits on this 9x12 paper. So I just kind of want to get that prepared for myself here, where it's going to be. And then I can kind of just roughly cut this so that I'm not dealing with such a large piece. Okay. And then I went looking for a spray adhesive that I might already have, thinking that that would be the best thing to get this attached to each other. So I'm going to show you what I used, and it actually worked out really, really well for me. And I liked the fact that it didn't have an odor. This is spray and bond fusible adhesive, and it's a permanent bond. It's machine washable, which doesn't matter for this project, but it was something I had. So you want to make sure your surface is protected, ventilation, or do this outside. Because I'm recording this, I am inside, so just, wear some kind of protection. And then, let's get this ready here. You're just gonna spray this. The other nice thing about this is it wasn't a foul odor or any of that. And then also, even cleaning it up, it was really kind of like a talcum powder almost when it dried. So I'm just gonna spray a lot of this on here. And you can see where I sprayed a lot, it's already dry. It's like instantly dry. So it's gonna hold just enough though, and you'll see what happens here. It's just enough that this will kind of stick to, it's not real sticky. We're gonna have to use our iron to kind of make this work, because it's meant for fabric, to kind of make your fabric appliques and that sort of thing. It's a spray adhesive for that. So you could maybe use some kind of fusible webbing or something like that, but I think when you go to iron that, the stickiness of it will come through this cheesecloth and be all over your iron. So this actually, I just got lucky that I had some of this. So, it's not completely stuck on there, but it's enough that I can pick it up now. So I'm gonna grab this off of my ironing board so that I can do this on camera for you. This is just my really messy June Taylor Quilters Press and Cut 2. It's a cutting mat on one side, and then this really grungy now ironing pad, because I don't want to mess up my ironing board, so for my craft things I use this. And then my iron's already hot. You don't need steam. But you're going to kind of see, I wanted to do this on camera so that you can kind of see how the color changes. If you see, you can see where I've sprayed more of the product. And as this heats up, it will kind of melt that and fuse this together. Now, if you want, it's probably better to do it from the back side of the paper so that you don't get any residue on your iron. And you can kind of see what happens easier too, is you'll see all those darker white spots, they're gonna go kind of clear again. So that lets you know that all that fused, that tracing paper to your cheesecloth, it just kind of dissolves all that powder away. And it doesn't stick to the mat, so I'm not, it's because of whatever that is. I really liked that it's dry and it's not sticky. I don't get any residue on my iron, and it just kind of heat set it. And that's it. So you can see the color's more consistent now. I don't have any of those cloudy white spots, and it's stuck to this. Now I probably can pull this apart, but for purposes that we're doing, I'm not going to force it. It feels like a pretty permanent bond. So that is super easy. And then depending on what you want to use it for, let me see if I can scoot out here a little bit. Depending on what you're using it for, you could leave this attached. Maybe that's part of your design, or just take your scissors and go around the edge and trim that off. So I think for this one, I'm going to leave it on for now. I don't need to cut it off on camera. That way, if I do want a little grungier edge to my pocket or something, I can leave that. So I'm going to make a few more of those. That was kind of a fun little way to make some more of this paper. And then I can, like I said, create little pockets and tucks and things like that, or even just embellishment on a journal card or something like that. So I have some of those. And then I was trying to think of other things that I can use as maybe to decorate inside the journal a little bit, or include things for her. I want to make some little envelopes out of the tracing paper, just to include some little bits and pieces of collage paper and that kind of thing that I'm going to be making. And so one of the things I like things that are textural and a little grungy looking, and This is the Hurricane Journal. So I just I don't mind if things look a little damaged or collected, like, you know, in a hurricane, everything ends up in a rubbish pile kind of deal. So I want things to kind of look, you know, with that thought in mind. So one of the things that I had made, I'm not going to do this on camera, but I think I can just explain it to you easily enough. I took some gel prints that were with deli paper that were take off, you know, when you're just cleaning off your brayer or you're just trying to blot up extra paint, that kind of thing. I took some of my failed jelly prints, or just really messy ones, and then just kitchen string, and wanted to kind of fuse those together just to make that kind of netting idea again. And so to do that, you're just going to take your deli paper. You're going to need 2 layers, or one that you can fold in half. And so you're going to put 1 layer down. And if you watched my video about making these little paper mache vessels, I made up a paste out of just cornstarch and water, a cup of water to a tablespoon of cornstarch, and microwaved it till it's just boiling a bit, and it makes a nice little thin paste. That's what I used for this. You could use glue also, any kind of PVA glue, but that's just something to do with a nice, easy, non-toxic homemade glue. But that's what I used for this. So I just made my little glue, and then I laid my string out into this grid pattern, put the other piece on top and let it dry. And then I'm just going through and tearing out. You could leave, depending on what your pattern was, you know, you can take these squares and tear them out. You have to be careful because you're going to end up tearing off all the paper in some of them. But you can do that, or you can just leave it depending on what your paper is. Maybe you have it stamped on it, or a design that you like. Something transparent's kind of nice because you see the threads in there. So that's just something that you can, you know, cut up and use for an extra texture. This is what they look like if you take all of the little cells out of paper, and then you see you just have that little grungy bits of paper attached to the string. So those were just kind of fun. And then I did one, the same thing. This one had a little bit more paint on it, one side, and then the other side was just clear, so you can really kind of see through it. But again, this is 2 layers, so it was just a more painty layer and then a plain layer so that you could see the string. And then I just, you know, tore it apart too. But it's just, I think that they're just kind of fun little grungy homemade embellishments. So I've got some of those. Maybe I'll make some more. And then another one that I tried that I wanted to show you, and it also involves this other product, is to do with your bits and scraps of anything. I have like salvaged edges that when I was cutting fabric, just the little pinked edges. You know, these are just from some of my printed fabrics that I did on my printer. I'd have a little white edge I'd have to trim off. Some of the cheesecloth, just any little scraps. So I made a big piece of this, and then I can just cut it apart and use what I want. So to do this, I again, just looked to see what I had, and I happen to have some of this Wash and Gone stabilizer. So it's by Pellin. You find this in your sewing department. Again, my Walmart is a super Walmart, so they have a little craft and sewing section, and that's where I got that. I'll put a link down below though for it on Amazon if they have it. But it's just, if you've never worked with it, it's just a stabilizer. And it, you know, if you're going to be doing embroidery or something like that, and then you want the stabilizer to be gone, you just get it wet, you wash it with just hand washing, just dip it in water, and this will all disappear. So I actually took a piece of this. You can see it was that length. So just tear a piece of this off, and I even just, you can see I just tore it, but you can cut it or whatever, but I'm just using scraps. So I just took a scrap of this, and then I started I have a drawer here of just little random things. And you can just start you know, with a piece. I think I started with one of the long things. You could even take something like this. I'm not going to waste that, but just any little scraps of things that you have. And it's kind of fun to do little small ones like this, kind of randomly, again, so that you can kind of get this netting effect. So you can see when I started, I had nothing. I laid down just a couple of long strips to get my lines kind of going this way. And I went ahead, you know, if I had a long one, I just stitched the whole way once. If I had this piece, I stitched it down with a zigzag stitch on some of them just to be different. But you can see they're just all little random pieces. And I just started forming this grid pattern onto this stabilizer, just standing there literally. Grab a piece, sew it with my sewing machine. Then once I had all my pieces enough on that I wanted, because I wanted some blank spaces in between, then I just went again with my sewing machine. You can see how there's double lines on some of them. This is the back side, there's a lot more. I just made sure that even if I didn't have anything there, that I was connecting these pieces. So I just made sure that when I was sewing, I finished, I went over everything one direction and then the other direction to make sure it was all down. And then I made sure I went around the whole edge so that that would be my border. And I do have these little things, you know, sticking out, and I like that too, just for that kind of grungy look. But it just made everything be connected to each other. And it really only takes, these are only 2 lines of sewing. One would have even done it, but I liked that having, you know, more than one. So I did a couple on each one. And then just once you're finished with your piece, you take it over, I just ran it under the sink in my laundry room and just washed away all that stabilizer. Once I was finished, you know, I had to dry it. So I just used my heat gun just to kind of, or hair dryer, just to kind of, you know, get it drying. And then it's so flat and a little stiff because I ironed it just to, you know, kind of finish drying it. And then I used just some light body magic sizing. You can use spray starch or something if you happen to have that. But this is just, you know, something I use when I iron shirts. And so I used some of that just to kind of give it a little more body, and even these little threads. So it just kind of, you see that it has some body to it, even though it's really open weave. You could just leave it, not do that part, and just leave it really scrunchy and messy, you know. And then when you're going to use it, even attaching it to something, you know, kind of have it be really kind of scrunched up and that kind of thing. You don't have to have it be nice and flat like this. But I thought this is even great. You can just cut little sections of it and use, you know, just on a pocket as decoration, or, you know, taking it and putting it over as a background layer would even be kind of fun. So, you know, just taking it and having that be part of your journal page, you know, and then adding to that. Or again, just doing, you know, maybe I make a pocket out of something else, like a piece of this, and then I embellish it, you know, over top with something like that, and then you have a nice pocket that has this fun pattern on it. So anyway, those were just some ideas that I had of things that I want to maybe add into the journal today. And then I'm going to be doing I want to include some gel prints too, because I don't know if she does that. Like I said, she's an artist, but I know she paints and does some crafts and things, but I don't know that she does. She may do gel painting too, I don't know. But I had some ideas specifically that I want to try. So I think I'll maybe pull that out next after I kind of make some more of this, and maybe make some journal cards, and then maybe do a gel print demo for this video series also. So I hope you check out the couple that I've done before. And like I said, if you have any comments or questions, please add them down in the comments. And I'm going to get back to it. So have a great rest of your day. Go make something. Bye.